What if the queen's love for her dead husband tore a kingdom apart and nearly destroyed her own daughter? In the year 1632, a thunderous silence fell over the battlefields of Lutzen as the mighty Gustavus Adolphus, the Lion of the North, lay lifeless in the blood-soaked soil. His death, abrupt and violent, sent tremors through the heart of Europe. The mighty Swedish king, whose tactical genius had reshaped the war, was no more. His fall was a shockwave, an end to an era. Yet, as the world mourned the loss of a great leader, there was one who refused to let him go. In the shadows of the royal court, a dark and twisted obsession began to unfold, a haunting tale that would echo for years to come. Queen Maria Eleonora, the grieving widow, was not just a woman in sorrow. She was consumed by a madness that could only be born from an obsessive love. Her husband's death was not an event, but a wound that refused to heal. For over a year, she kept his embalmed body in her personal chambers. It was no longer just the body of her beloved king. It became a macabre presence, a constant, silent companion that hovered over her every waking moment. The scent of embalming fluids mingled with the musty air, and the flickering candlelight cast grotesque shadows on the walls. The palace, once a place of grandeur, had become a tomb. Maria's grief knew no boundaries, no sense of time. She ordered the heart of Gustavus Adolphus to be carefully removed and placed in a golden casket, a relic that would forever serve as a symbol of her unyielding devotion. This sacred object, shimmering in the candlelight, was suspended above her bed, a chilling reminder of a love that transcended death. It was as though the heart of the king, still beating in the silence of his absence, would provide her with comfort. Yet, in truth, it only deepened her descent into madness. The golden casket became both a symbol of her undying affection and a chilling testament to her unraveling mind. As the days turned into months, Maria Eleonora transformed her chambers into a darkened shrine to her lost love. The windows were sealed shut, draped in heavy black velvet that absorbed every beam of light. A perpetual gloom hung in the air, a silent testament to the queen's grief. The sounds of the world outside, the laughter of the court, the cries of the servants, all seemed to fade into a distant echo, as though muffled by the oppressive weight of sorrow. Within the confines of these walls, only the whispers of her thoughts and the hollow silence of her husband's corpse remained. It was a suffocating silence, broken only by the distant sounds of the war that raged beyond the palace. The queen's obsession with the king's body was not a private affair. Her young daughter, the future Queen Christina, was forced to live within this grim mausoleum. A child, caught in the suffocating grip of her mother's grief, Christina was required to sleep beneath the watchful eyes of the embalmed king. The oppressive darkness that engulfed the palace mirrored the turmoil within the child's heart. She was a silent witness to the macabre spectacle, a helpless figure trapped in a world where love and death had merged into a twisted, unyielding bond. Fear hung in the air like a thick fog, and the shadow of her father's decaying body loomed over her every step. The Swedish court was not blind to the queen's strange behavior, but fear kept the nobility at bay. They were too preoccupied with the ongoing war and the delicate balance of power to confront the widow's madness. Whispers floated through the halls of the palace, but no one dared to intervene. They could not understand the depth of Maria Eleonora's obsession, nor the grief that twisted her heart into something unrecognizable. To them, she was a monarch, a woman of power, whose sorrow had become a weight too heavy for anyone to bear. The queen's actions, though grotesque, seemed almost sacred to her, an expression of undying love. But within the royal walls, it was clear that the kingdom was crumbling, slowly suffocated by a grief it could not escape. Time, however, was a relentless force. The king's death had not only fractured the royal family, but had left the Swedish Empire vulnerable to its enemies. The nobility, already struggling with the pressure of the war, began to question the queen's actions. What was once seen as a personal tragedy had now become a national crisis. Gustavus Adolphus had been a beacon of hope, his leadership the driving force behind Sweden's rise. His death, unavenged and unresolved, left a vacuum of power. Yet, as Maria Eleonora's obsession with the corpse deepened, Sweden's stability began to erode. The future of the nation hung by a thread, teetering dangerously on the edge of disaster. The court's inaction only fanned the flames of the growing crisis. Queen Christina, now a young girl trapped in this macabre nightmare, began to withdraw into herself. Her childhood, meant to be a time of joy and discovery, was consumed by the oppressive atmosphere of mourning. Christina's once bright eyes had lost their gleam, replaced by the haunted look of someone far older than her years. The whispers of the court that surrounded her were laced with pity and fear. Her mother's madness was a weight on her fragile shoulders, and her father's rotting remains were a constant reminder of a world that had lost its way. She learned to walk in silence, her every movement shadowed by the ghost of the man who had once been the heart of the Swedish Empire. In her, a quiet rebellion began to stir. But there were forces at work beyond the palace, forces that could no longer ignore the queen's bizarre and destructive behavior. The chancellor, the man responsible for guiding Sweden through this dark chapter, understood that Maria Eleonora's grip on power was not just a personal crisis. It was a national threat. He had watched as the queen's obsession spiraled, and now, with the kingdom on the brink, he knew something had to be done. The royal court was on the verge of collapse, and the people of Sweden were looking to their leaders for strength. The chancellor knew that in order to save the country, he would have to do what no one had dared to do before: confront the queen, rip her from her madness, and force the burial of her husband. In a desperate attempt to wrestle the nation from the clutches of the queen's sorrow, the chancellor ordered a bold and dramatic intervention. It was a cold winter morning when his men, under the cover of darkness, descended upon Maria Eleonora's chambers. The doors to her private sanctum, once sealed tight in mourning, were broken open. The queen, who had lived for so long in the shadows, was met with the bright, harsh light of reality. Her husband's embalmed body, once a silent companion, was forcefully removed from her grasp. The golden casket containing the heart of Gustavus Adolphus was torn from above her bed, shattering the illusion she had created. For the first time in over a year, Maria Eleonora was forced to face the reality of death, not as a lover's sacred bond, but as the finality it truly was. The queen's reign of grief had come to a crushing end. The finality of the queen's tragedy hit her like a tidal wave. The walls that had once confined her to a world of eternal darkness were now torn apart, and for the first time in what felt like an eternity, Maria Eleonora was confronted by the light of the world outside. Yet the grief that had once been her shield now felt like a dagger lodged deep in her soul. Her hands, trembling, reached out for the remnants of the life she had clung to, her husband's body, his heart, his very essence. But it was gone. The scent of death, once a familiar presence, was replaced by the cold sting of emptiness. The queen, who had been the embodiment of power and grace, now seemed like a shell, a broken woman abandoned by her own desires and haunted by the love that had consumed her. Her mind, once sharp and resolute, had fractured beyond repair. The burial of Gustavus Adolphus was a spectacle of its own, yet no ceremony could truly honor the man who had been the very embodiment of Swedish strength. His body, once the symbol of a kingdom's triumphs, was lowered into the ground with a silence that seemed deafening. The people of Sweden, the nobles, and even the soldiers who had once followed him to victory stood in muted reverence. Yet, even in death, Gustavus had left behind a legacy not just of military brilliance, but of heartbreak. For his widow, this was the final blow, an act of closure that threatened to suffocate the last remnants of her sanity. The earth that swallowed him seemed to mock her grief, a reminder that death, in all its cold indifference, had taken everything from her. As the king was laid to rest, the court, once paralyzed by fear, began to stir with quiet hope. Without the queen's overwhelming presence, the weight of the war and the political chaos could now be confronted with clarity. Sweden, in its broken state, had to find a way forward. Yet for Maria Eleonora, the world outside had become an alien place. Her life was no longer her own, and she was left to roam the halls of the palace, a phantom of the past. Her daughter, Christina, was now the focus of the regency, and the future of Sweden rested on her young shoulders. But what would become of the queen? Her grip on reality was gone, and in the shadows of her grief, Maria Eleonora faded from the history books, her name becoming synonymous with tragedy and obsession. Christina, now poised to inherit the throne, was left to pick up the pieces of a broken kingdom. The weight of her mother's madness loomed over her every step, but it was the daughter's resilience that would define the future of Sweden. She would rise from the ashes of this dark chapter, guided by a strength that defied the tragic legacy of her parents. Though young, Christina's mind was sharp, her resolve even sharper. She would go on to become one of the most extraordinary rulers Sweden would ever see. But the shadows of her childhood would never fully leave her. The rotting corpse of her father, the suffocating atmosphere of grief, and the specter of her mother's madness would remain etched in her memory forever. And so, the tale of Maria Eleonora, the queen who could not let go of death, became a cautionary whisper in the royal courts of Europe. Her obsessive love, her descent into madness, and the tragic loss of her husband had turned a once glorious empire into a kingdom of shadows. Gustavus Adolphus, the Lion of the North, would forever be remembered as a military genius and a tragic figure. His legacy would live on in the annals of history, but it would also serve as a stark reminder of the cost of obsession, the dangers of unchecked grief, and the dark, haunting power of love that refuses to die. Maria Eleonora's story, a blend of love and madness, would be passed down through the ages, a chilling testament to the fragility of the human mind in the face of overwhelming loss.